It was supposed to be an ordinary shift, the kind nurses move through on instinct, guided by routines they've repeated countless times before. Monitors hummed softly, charts were checked, and the room held that familiar stillness that often surrounds someone nearing the end. As she adjusted the blankets and checked the woman's vitals, nothing suggested this moment would be any different from the many others she had witnessed. But then her hand brushed against something unexpected in the pocket of the woman's gown. It wasn't medical, it wasn't practical, and it certainly didn't belong there by accident. Curious, she gently pulled it out and found a small, creased birthday card, its edges worn as if it had been unfolded and refolded many times. The card looked old, treasured, and completely out of place in a hospital room. In that instant, the sterile environment seemed to fade, replaced by a quiet sense that this woman's life held stories no chart could capture. The discovery shifted the atmosphere, turning a routine task into a deeply human moment that hinted at love, memory, and connection beyond these walls. And just like that, an ordinary shift became unforgettable. As she held the card for a moment longer, it became clear that this wasn't just a forgotten piece of paper. It felt more like a quiet message that had waited patiently to be noticed. In a room where machines measured breath and heartbeat, the card spoke of something no monitor ever could. It represented love that had survived distance, silence, and time. Even though no family stood by the bedside, this small card proved that the woman had not been emotionally alone. Someone, somewhere, had once taken the time to choose it, write in it, and send it with care. That realization challenged the assumption that an empty room means an empty life. Often, the deepest connections aren't visible in the final moments, yet they remain just as real. The nurse understood that this card was likely carried for comfort, a reminder of being seen and remembered. It was a symbol of a bond that didn't disappear just because circumstances changed. In that fragile moment, the card bridged the gap between past and present, between presence and absence. It quietly reminded everyone that love doesn't always show up loudly, but it endures all the same. As the nurse glanced at the card again, something shifted in the way she saw the woman lying there. Until that moment, she had been a patient defined by symptoms, numbers, and a name on a chart. But now, the card reframed everything. This wasn't just someone nearing the end of life, this was a mother. A woman who had once celebrated birthdays, waited for phone calls, and held on to words that mattered enough to keep close. The realization softened the room, making it feel less clinical and more personal. The nurse imagined the woman receiving the card years ago, perhaps smiling, perhaps crying, perhaps tucking it away carefully because it meant more than it appeared to. In that instant, the woman's past came rushing into focus, filled with moments no one in the room had witnessed. The nurse felt a deeper responsibility, not just to care for a body, but to honor a life that had been lived fully long before this moment. Seeing her as a mother restored her identity beyond illness, reminding everyone that people do not become invisible simply because they are weak or quiet at the end. She was, and always had been, someone's whole world. At first glance, it would have been easy to assume that the absence of family meant abandonment, that silence over the years had erased care and concern. That's a story people often tell themselves when no one is sitting by the bed. But the card quietly challenged that idea. It suggested a more complicated truth, one shaped by distance, missed chances, and the messy realities of life. Sometimes love doesn't disappear, it just loses its way. Relationships can fracture not because of indifference, but because pride lingers too long, words go unsaid, or time moves faster than reconciliation. The nurse understood that separation doesn't always mean a lack of feeling. It can mean regret carried quietly, or affection expressed in the only way someone knew how at the time. The card may have been sent years ago, maybe after a difficult conversation or during a moment of courage that wasn't sustained. Yet it was still kept, still valued, still close. That alone spoke volumes. It reminded everyone that human connections are rarely simple, and love often exists alongside mistakes. Even when paths drift apart, the bond can remain, fragile but real, waiting to be recognized. The nurse felt it in a way that training could never fully prepare her for. In that moment, she wasn't just performing a role or following a checklist, she was sharing space with another human being at the most vulnerable point of life. The card stirred something deeply personal, reminding her why she had chosen this profession in the first place. Medicine can ease pain and extend time, but compassion gives those final moments meaning. She adjusted her approach, slowing down, speaking more softly, holding the woman's hand just a little longer than required. There was no obligation to do so, yet it felt essential. The room no longer felt like part of a hospital ward, it felt like a place where dignity mattered. The nurse realized that presence itself could be a form of care, especially when words were no longer possible. By simply being there, she honored the love represented by that card and the life behind it. In the absence of family, her kindness filled the space where loneliness could have settled. Sometimes, the greatest comfort comes not from treatment, but from being seen. In the quiet that followed, the meaning of the card seemed to stretch far beyond that hospital room. It became a gentle warning and a tender reminder all at once. Life has a way of convincing us that there will always be more time, more chances to call, to forgive, to show up. But moments slip away faster than we expect, leaving behind only what we chose to hold on to. That small birthday card carried years of unspoken emotion, proof that even simple gestures can outlive distance and silence. It asked an unspoken question of everyone who hears this story: what would we want found in our pockets at the end? Not our titles, not our schedules, but evidence that we loved and were loved in return. The nurse understood that this was the true legacy people leave behind, the quiet connections that shape a lifetime. Long after machines fall silent, it is these moments that matter. So let this story be the nudge to reach out while you can, to say the words before they become regrets. Because sometimes, love waits patiently, folded and worn, hoping it's not too late.